Good morning, guys. All right, so I just grabbed the apricots out of the refrigerator where they've been sitting overnight. Just finishing up my morning coffee here. And we're gonna get these on the stove to simmer down and turn into jam. So I will get that started right now. Okay, I was just double checking my recipe that I found, which by the way comes from Homestead and Chill website. So it says we just need to get the apricots into the pan. And you guys, look at how much juice ended up in here. Isn't that beautiful? So perfect. All right, so we're just gonna get these guys in here. Grab a spoon. All the sugar has settled on the bottom of this, so get that all scraped in here as well. And then we need to add a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. And this is the thing that will, not only will it help preserve it, but it will also help with the setting up because lemons have a lot of pectin in them, which is kind of surprising, but they do. All right, I'm gonna get this turned on, start heating up while I grab a lemon juice. All right, actually I only need a 1/4 cup. Did I say a 1/4 cup or a 1/2 cup? Well, we only need a 1/4. So, you could absolutely use fresh squeezed lemon juice if you wanted to, but I have this, it's open, might as well use it. We'll get that stirred in. Get all the sugar stirred in as well. And we're just gonna let this come up to temperature. Probably keep a good eye on it, stir it quite a bit as it's cooking so we don't get a scorched bottom. And then when it has cooked down enough and it has started to thicken up, I'll bring you back and we will get it into jars. Okay, so while that cooks down, because it's probably gonna take a good 20, maybe even 30 minutes, I'm gonna get a couple of other quick things done. I have the rest of the apricots all washed up over there. So I'm going to get those all pitted and I think I'm gonna freeze them for right now. I did put a batch of them in the freeze dryer just this morning, so we'll see how those turn out. Maybe I put the rest of them in there, but in the meantime, I'll just freeze them and figure out what to do with them later. And then I need to get some tomatoes in the freezer as well. I need to get some herbs ready to get dried. So yeah, let me just start doing the things. All right, I have to run out and get the freezer for the tomatoes from the garage. I also have a tray of cherries in that freezer, so I need to get those bagged up as well. All right, so right now what I'm doing is basically just, I don't have enough tomatoes to really do anything with yet. So I'm just washing them and putting them in a bag. And once I get enough of them to start turning them into tomato sauce, or honestly, I haven't even really decided what I am gonna make. But until I have enough to start doing that, I'll just freeze them and get to them when I have a whole big bag, or hopefully 10 or 20 whole big bags. All right, so let's get these guys washed up here. Just dawned on me that I should probably start paying attention to which is which kind of tomato because I planted, gosh, I probably planted 7 or 8 different varieties of tomatoes in my garden, of paste tomatoes. These are all paste tomatoes. And I probably should figure out which one does the best. So, note to self, start keeping track of that. But for now, we're just gonna get these frozen. The other cool thing about freezing your tomatoes is it makes it really easy to get the skins off. When they thaw, they just slip right off. I'm not gonna worry about trying to core them. I don't know, I'll end up putting it probably in my blender, which is very high powered, and it'll just chew right through them. So not super worried about it. All right, I'm gonna get these back in the fridge. Okay, and seriously, you guys, I have to go through my freezer out there because it is not going to hold many more tomatoes or apricots or cherries. So we have one upright freezer that's just a full freezer that has all of our meat in it. So we do butcher box for, I would say, probably 90% of our meat, and except that we just don't go through it. We only get it every other month, but I don't know. I don't eat very much at any one time, and it's just David and I, so it is very full. So we actually have had to put some of that into the other freezer. And then the other freezer is just a side by side, so one part of it's a freezer, so it's pretty small. We are having discussions about getting a chest freezer to handle some of this volume. All right, I'm gonna get these cherries done next. So I will just get these in the freezer as well. I definitely need to mark what they are. However, as I will look at this and think, what in the world? And David and I committed to each other. Well, I committed to, well, no, we both did, because none of us were very good at labeling the things we put in the freezer. And we ended up throwing a lot of stuff away, because you just, like, especially meals that we froze, like leftovers, you just looked at it and you're like, I have no idea. And you didn't really want to thaw it out just to figure it out, because then what if you didn't want to actually eat that? All right. Freeze, dried cherries. And I always put the date as well, so that if, like, when I do go through my freezer, I'm sure I'm going to find things in there that are a couple years old and probably either need to be used right away or gotten rid of. All right, these are going in the freezer as well. Back in the freezer. The other reason I've been putting off the freezer is that it's really, really warm in the garage right now, and I just don't want to stand out there and do it. All right, so our relish is all done, so let's take these off, make sure the seals are good. And these also need to be labeled. You don't want to leave your rings on your canned goods, because not only do they not really do anything, but especially when you have vinegary items, they can get rusted onto your glass, which makes them hard to open, but they don't do anything, right? These are sealed. So they don't hold this on. And in fact, if one of these did fail, it hides the fact that it has failed until you go to open it. So this way you can kind of tell, just looking at the jar, if the lid has failed. If the seal has failed and you need to either use it or get rid of it. All right, these guys need to be labeled as well. All right, so now these can go down into the pantry. All right, and these guys are just herbs I collected yesterday. So more chamomile and more borage. I've been really surprised that my chamomile is still going. Definitely not as going as strong as it was, but well, it is going as strong, but the flowers are much smaller now than they were. But it's still covered in flowers every single time I go out there to pick, and I'm still picking every other day. Actually, this was a amount just from last night, and I had picked the night before as well. So yeah, they're still going pretty good. I don't know what I'm going to do with any of this stuff yet, but I will get there. Actually, I forgot. I also have some calendula to pop the heads off of. Yeah, this is another one I have not looked up yet. So we're just gonna get them dried. Probably be fun to throw these in the freeze dryer. I just think it's so cool how I just planted like a mix of them, and they have all different like textures, and I mean, colors are not surprising. It's the textures that are surprising to me. Where's another one? I'm like, yeah, and like this one has a dark center. It's very cool. Pardon Chester. He likes to announce to us when he has used the litter box. So this will go on for a few minutes. Thank you, Chester. Actually, funny enough, half the time when you actually respond to him and like I just did say thank you or something, he stops. Like, that's all he wanted. He just wanted you to acknowledge that he used the litter box. We have the strangest cats. All right, let's take a look at how our apricots are doing here. Give them a stir. Still pretty juicy, but bubbling away. All right, now we need to address the rest of the apricots and get them all pitted and ready to go into the freezer. Alrighty, back again. The jam is ready to go. You can see here, I am going to get the immersion blender out and give it a quick zhuzh. I like my jam to be chunky, but this is a little too chunky for me. So we'll just get it a little bit like half blended up. And then I have my lids getting ready to go, and my jars are all in the oven warming up, those ones that we washed yesterday together. And then I also did get the rest of the apricots pitted and halved and pitted. There's a tray of kind of mushy and ones that had bugs in them, which the chickens will enjoy in the freezer right now, getting nice and chilled for my chickies. And then I have another bowl here of kind of just mushy ones. They're not bad, but they're not ones that like I want to freeze necessarily. So what I'm going to do with them is make a shrub. If you don't know what a shrub is, it's this concoction of typically fruit, some kind of vinegar, your choice of vinegar, a lot of times an herb of some kind or a spice is added to it, and then sugar. And you mix that together, and either you let it macerate together, on a shelf for a couple of weeks, or you can cook it together and do it that way. So I think I'm going to cook mine so that I can actually get it canned while I'm canning things. Yeah, so, and then what you do with the shrub is you put a small amount of it in your drink. It can go just in sparkling water, it can go in an alcoholic drink, and it just gives it this amazing flavor of whatever fruit and herb you put in. And it also just is super refreshing for some reason. I know it sounds disgusting to put sweet vinegar in your drink, but trust me, if you've never tried one, I highly recommend it. All right, so let's get going on, actually let's get going on that shrub. Okay, so all the recipes that I have found typically call for equal parts fruit, sugar, and vinegar. I am going to reduce the sugar a little bit as usual, but probably just put in 3/4 of a cup of sugar and a cup of vinegar. I think I probably have more like 3 cups of apricots here though. So we will do 3 cups, a cup and a half of sugar, 3 cups of vinegar. You know, actually, now that I think about it, this reminds me, shrubs remind me a bit of kombucha, or kombucha reminds me of shrubs. So if you're a fan of kombucha, definitely would be a fan of shrubs. Again, highly recommend. All right, let us pull the jars out and get filling them. And again, just a 1/4 inch headspace for these. There is still some left in the pan, and I'll just put that in one of these other jars and put it in the fridge because there's not enough to fill a jar, and I will enjoy it. And you might be wondering how I knew that it was ready. I just put a little bit on a plate and stuck it in the fridge for, actually it was in there for probably about 30 minutes. And then when I got it out, tipped the plate and it did not move. So that told me it was ready to be set. And I got to taste it, and it is delicious. So I did go to the USDA's website just a little bit ago because yesterday the recipe, if you'll remember, called for adding 10 minutes of time for my elevation. This recipe only calls for adding 5 minutes of time for my elevation, which is 5,000 feet. So I decided to actually go to the official standard for canning, the USDA. It gets updated on a regular basis for what are the recommended guidelines. And typically for my elevation, you add 5 minutes. And the reasoning behind that is that because water boils at a lower temperature, the higher you get. So here it boils around 202 instead of 212 Fahrenheit. And so it means that it needs to sit in the warm water longer so it can kill off the bacteria, because it's the heat and the time combined that kill off the bacteria in your jars. So if you don't have the right heat, then you need to add more time. So we will be doing this for 10 minutes. Let's get the jars in. It is going to start heating and it'll come to a boil. The funny thing is about this, because like I said, again, because the water boils here at 202 instead of 212, and this monitors what temperature the water is, it never starts the time that it has. So you can start the time on this, which I have it for 10 minutes. It never starts it once it gets to temperature, because it doesn't get to temperature. So I just have to listen for it to be boiling and then set a timer for 10 minutes. but we'll put the lid on so it goes a little bit quicker. And I'll show you what they look like coming out. Well guys, we are all finished. We ended up with 8, almost 8. This one's not quite full. We'll just put that one in the fridge. Pints of apricot jam and 5 pints of the dill relish, as well as the apricots that are now in the freezer and the ones that are down in the freeze dryer right now, and a shrub that we'll get to in the next couple of days. So thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you had a great time, and we'll see you next time.